All right, people. Good morning. Happy Saturday. Hope you guys are doing well. We got a lot of college football today. We got the Huskies in about 3.5 hours. But since we don't have a Seahawks game this week, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about this upcoming trade deadline. And let's move on to the next team that might be looking to blow it up a little bit. Honestly, this team, they've got a win, which the Jets don't have. But you could argue they're more of a mess than the Jets, and they might need to blow it up more than the Jets. Because at least with the Jets, they they've got a head coach that they're probably going to stick with for at least a couple of years. Like I don't think Aaron Glenn is going to be one and done. And I guess they're actually no, I'm not even going to go that far, but I mean, at least they got that. The Dolphins, they need a coach, they need a quarterback. It feels like they need everything. So let's talk about what the Dolphins have to offer back in 60 seconds. All right, guys, let's take a minute so I can tell you guys about Sleeper. I'll tell you a little secret as well. It's more than just a platform for fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users have enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but there's so much more to it. You have live stats, real-time updates of all stats. You have a news feed with lightning-fast updates on players and teams, and a real-time chat where you can engage with other users about plays, performances, games, all kinds of stuff during the sports season. So download Sleeper, experience it for yourself, and don't forget to use my promo code SBN to get up to a $100 match on your first deposit, and pair that with their new promo that will give you a free $20 entry, no deposit needed. So you can use both of those promos. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states and going. So check out Sleeper today and use those promos. All right, welcome back. So the first guy we're going to talk about, we've already discussed briefly, but there's a reason why we discussed him briefly, because there was actually a little bit of smoke here. We're talking about Achane. Achane, the running back. Fourth year running back now, former third round pick. I mean, he's very good, right? I'll say this. If the Seahawks wanted to trade for a running back, this would be the guy, because I think he'd be a great fit for what we do here in Seattle. And I think that he would add the most to this team of any running back we could get. And there was a little bit of smoke around the idea that we might build a trade package for Achane, and it might involve Woolen. Now, I don't know if that Woolen thing is still on the table, but honestly, Woolen shouldn't be worth that much anyway. So you're building a package around draft picks regardless. So Achane, very young, 24. He turned 24 less than 2 weeks ago, and I mean he's been great. He's been great. Rookie year, almost 1,000 yards on 130 touches. Year after that, obviously lost the efficiency, but he gave you almost 1,500 yards from scrimmage, right? Still really, really good. Still really, really productive. So far this year, he's been productive too for a really bad team. It's not easy for a running back on a really bad team to be productive, but he's found a way. So I get the interest. I do. I understand this guy's one of the fastest players in the NFL, might be the fastest running back in football. And he is the same age as some players that are going to be in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft. Like he's 24 right now. He's turning 25 about a month into next season. There are going to be rookies that are older than that next year, for sure. So I get it. I believe if I had to guess, I think Miami thinks he's too good to trade. I think Miami would say we're not giving him up unless you give up the world. And while I do think very highly of Achane, I don't think I'd be willing to give up the world for him. So just for the sake of talking about the things that need to be talked about, right? He's in his third year. I think earlier I may have accidentally said he's entering his fourth year. This is his third year that he's in right now. And the money is not a big deal, right? The money is not going to be significant. He's got a signing bonus next year of less than $250,000, so Miami would not have to take on a big dead cap hit. and Seattle would be taking on additional salary of less than 3 million, less than 2.5 million, probably a little more than 2 million. So very, very reasonable. Like, money would not be the thing here. And he's not eligible for an extension until the end of the year. So it's not like you have to trade him or trade for him and then extend him immediately. So we don't have to worry about that either. However, for all of these reasons, I suspect that a trade would require a significant draft pick given up. Because you have the extra cheap year, 2026, he's not even going to be costing $1.75 million. Like, you're talking about less than 2 million for a guy this good and this young. And the fact that he's outpaced his draft slotting. And I really think that you're looking at approximately a second round pick. Maybe it would be like a third round pick, and then you throw in maybe a fourth rounder. Maybe it's a third round pick this year and a third round pick next. But one way or the other, I think you're going to be pushing up towards about a second round pick in terms of overall value. I don't think this one's going to come easy. Now, would I be willing to do that? I might. I got to be honest here. I think this guy is really, really good and a really, really good fit. But I am going to echo what I said in my video about the Jets yesterday. I don't think the talent level of the running backs in Seattle is the problem. So you get Achane in here. Is he going to be better than what we have? Absolutely. But is he going to fix the problem that we have that is preventing us from being a consistent rushing team? No. He's going to make it better, but the problem still exists. So that's number one, and that's the one where there's actually a little bit of juice behind it. So I definitely wanted to touch on that again. The other guy in the skill position ranks on offense that people will probably want to talk about is Jaylen Waddle. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest. I don't get this one. He's a really good player, right? I got nothing negative to say about him. Former 6th overall pick. He's about to turn 27, so entering his prime. I mean, he's really good. He's got a lot of speed. He's very dangerous. He's been productive in his career. Look at all these 1,000-yard seasons he's got. Last couple years, a little bit of tough sledding, but there are plenty of extenuating circumstances there. I understand that it's not cut and dry with Jaylen Waddle as to why he hasn't been as productive the last year and a half. But we're talking about a very good player. I understand that. But first of all, the contract is complicated to trade for. So as of right now, the Dolphins have taken Jaylen Waddle's base salary basically down to as low as you can get for this year and next year. So there is going to be some dead money. Now, I guess the good news is that there's a lot of base salary in 2027 and 2028 still. So that's not something the Dolphins are going to have to worry about. And they've also got a couple of void years at the end of Waddle's deal. And that would be something that, again, that would be the Dolphins' problem, not the Seahawks' problem. But if you look at this and you go trade post June 1st, you can see there are some non-trivial cap concerns that you have. Remember, these void years, these are things that I believe. And sometimes this NFL contract stuff is weird and complicated and not entirely clear. I believe Miami's on the hook for that. So it's spread out because of the post June 1st element, I guess. But look at it's still a lot of money. It's just spread out over several years. It's not great. It could be worse, I'll grant you. I don't think it's a terrible thing. It's something that Miami would consider doing. But again, this is a very good player who is still relatively young. Miami might just say, you know what, let's roll it forward and hope we can figure out this quarterback thing in the next couple years, rather than take on a bunch of dead money on a player that we know is really good. But it's doable, right? Okay, like this contract is tradable in theory. Miami would have to be willing to take a little bit of a beating. But first of all, you're going to have to give up some serious stuff to get Miami to bite on this. Like, if Miami's going to be eating this kind of dead money over the next several years, then you need to be giving up something pretty serious to get them to listen. You might have to give up like probably more than we got for DK Metcalf. So at least a second round pick and possibly more. You can make the argument that because of the contract, you're going to have to even push it up close to a first. And the big problem I have with Jaylen Waddle, or really any high profile receiver, is there aren't enough passes in this offense. This is a Clint Kubiak offense. He's not very wide receiver heavy. He's tight end heavy. He's back heavy. He's run the ball heavy. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me to acquire a big time, expensive, long term wide receiver like Jaylen Waddle when we are third to last in the league in passing attempts. And we don't even really have enough passes to go around to guys like Cooper Kupp. And I know that Jaylen Waddle's a much better player than Cooper Kupp, but if you put Cooper Kupp in a different offense, he would probably be putting up much better numbers. His numbers are not just because he's not good. His numbers are low because we don't throw the ball a lot. So I struggle with this one myself. I know some Seahawks fans want to trade for a receiver. I don't really get it. I don't get that one. Okay, next guy. This is going to be our last guy on offense for these Dolphins. It's the only offensive lineman I think you could even think about, Aaron Brewer. Aaron Brewer playing center for these Dolphins. He's been very good so far this year, actually ranked as one of the best centers in the league by Pro Football Focus, 74.1. Now, you go back to 2024, you'll see something very similar. So, Aaron Brewer has been one of the better centers in the league for a while. He's only 27. He is a little bit on the lighter side, maybe even a little bit troublingly light, but he gets it done. I don't know how he does it, but at 274, you wouldn't think he'd be able to get away with this. Now, the contract is not huge, but it's not nothing either. So let's try to break this down here looking at the over the cap page. So if this trade is taken as a post June 1st, and as you can see, Miami does have a decent amount of dead money here. They also have 3 void years, which that's kind of a pain in the butt. But one thing that's going on here, because this was not a very big contract and because he's currently in the middle of year 2 of it, it's spread out really well. Like, look at this. You've got very minimal portions of the cap being taken up by these dead cap hits. So you are saving Miami money and you're allowing them to kind of push things around a little bit in a way that might be beneficial to them because this contract was not that bad when they signed it. This was actually a very reasonable deal, and he's more than outplayed it in my estimation. But you're still talking about Miami having to eat a lot of money for a player that they will no longer have. So I imagine that Aaron Brewer is going to cost a pretty decent pick here. You might be looking at like a 3rd round pick here for a veteran center who, after you trade for him, he might want a new contract. A lot of players do that. And I imagine Brewer's new contract is going to be somewhere around 11 to 12 million a year. Now, I'd be okay with that, but there is a certain risk to it, right? There is a certain element of, is this even going to fix our problem as well? Because Aaron Brewer's a center. You sign him, you make the center position a lot better. Right guard, you're hoping that Sundle bumps over and is better than Bradford, but there's no guarantee of that. Sundle, there's a lot of limitations with his game. And look, we got to try to do better than Bradford, so I would be all for the experiment, but that doesn't guarantee the experiment's going to work. So, Aaron Brewer, interesting option as long as you're willing to give up the capital for it. All right, so that's your 3rd guy. We got 2 guys on defense I want to talk about for a minute. This first one I'm only going to talk about, though, because I know a lot of Seahawks fans are poking around here. Well, not a lot, but some. Okay, a few. Bradley Chubb. I don't really see this one. For one, he's a bigger edge. I think he's meant to play in a 4-3. I think you put him in a 3-4. I don't know. I don't know if I'm super into that. But even that's not really the big problem here, right? Okay, so first of all, remember, if you trade for an edge rusher like a Bradley Chubb, you then need to make a separate deal because I don't think Miami's going to want any of our edge rushers to get probably Boye Mafe out. So keep that in mind as we go forward here. You trade for a guy like Chubb, you then have to somehow get value for Boye Mafe, which you got to figure out how you're going to do that because 5 edge players that all want to play is too much. But beyond that, I mean, he had a major injury last year, missed the entire 2024 season. So far this year, he's looked pretty good, but I don't see the former Pro Bowler coming back here. This is a guy who made 2 Pro Bowls in Denver, and his first full year in Miami had 11 sacks. He was good. He was a really good player for him. Did a lot of good stuff, but he's 1 year removed from the big injury, and I mean, he doesn't seem like the same impact player to me. Doesn't seem like he's some big difference maker over a Boye Mafe, and I say that even knowing that Mafe has not been stellar this year by any stretch. And also, next offseason, he turns 30, so age is becoming a concern. And with his ACL tear, his body might be older than the 29 that he is on paper. And you take a look at the contract here. Look, contract is whatever, like the current contract that he's currently on with the Dolphins. You can see that the contract actually isn't that long. You are talking about some pretty significant dead cap hits, but in theory, because Miami is in the position that they're in, they might still be willing to do it just to be done with it. It might be a situation where they look at Bradley Chubb as kind of like their Jamal Adams, where he's not necessarily the worst player in the world, but he's making a lot of money, and the team just doesn't really have a place for him. Like, you look at Miami's roster, right? They drafted Chop Robinson about a year and a half ago. Maybe they want to make him their guy going forward, and they look at Bradley Chubb and they go, you're just getting in the way. Maybe they'd be willing to do it, but you're going to have to find a way to make the trade worth it to them because they're still going to be eating quite a bit of dead money here. The savings are not insignificant, though, and the circumstances being what they are, maybe you could get away with like a 4th-round pick. I wouldn't be surprised if it had to be a little bit more than that, and I'm just not that interested in giving up a bunch for Bradley Chubb when I feel like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. I think that you trade for Chubb, you trade Boye Mafe, maybe you flip Mafe into something else that you need, but did you really get better? I don't know, maybe a little bit, but you got way more pricier because look at this contract with Chubb. So I mainly talked about this one just to talk about how I don't really like it, but yeah, I don't really like it. Bradley Chubb doesn't do much for me. And there's one more guy that we're going to talk about for a few minutes here. This one's controversial. I know that there are a lot of people that really, really like this guy, and I know there are a lot of people who really, really don't like this guy. But the Seahawks do need some linebacker help. This guy's been here before, and I will say, most Dolphins fans that I know have been very happy with this guy. We're talking about Jordan Brooks here. So Jordan Brooks, former 1st-round pick of the Seahawks. We know that he's capable of playing. He's relatively young. He's only 28. He just turned 28 a couple days ago. So we're not worried about him suddenly becoming over the hill. He's been productive for the Dolphins over the last year and a half that he's been there. Now, there are limitations here. There are concerns that I have with him as a player. They're not, I don't think the concerns are necessarily ubiquitous across all Seahawks fans. I think that whether or not Jordan Brooks is a good cover player is one of the most controversial topics in the entire Seahawks fan base. So feel free to have that fight down in the comments if you care to have it. We've had it many times, and I don't really care to have it because it's exhausting. So I'm not really going to get into that too much. But what I will say is that Seahawks need help at linebacker because right now they have no depth, and arguably, I know Drake Thomas has played well the last couple games, but we need to be careful with assuming that he's just good from here on out because of a couple of good games. So maybe there's something here. Now, the contract for Jordan Brooks, remember, not that bad. And a bunch of it has been converted to void over the late 3 years. So there is some dead money for Miami to eat, but it's not a huge amount. The bonus was actually pretty low when they gave him this contract, as you can see. Now, there is still dead money to eat, but maybe that's worth it for Miami to do. Again, with all the stuff that's happened with Miami over the last year and a half, with Tua doing what he's doing, and and Tyreek Hill shattering his leg and blah, 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 blah. They might need to just turtle up for a couple years and then try to come out on the other side and get this stuff right with a completely blank slate. And maybe they look at Jordan Brooks and they go, look, we like you, but by the time we're ready to go win again, you're going to be on the wrong side of 30, and you only have a year and a half left on your deal anyway. Like, I could see them maybe being willing to eat a decent amount of dead money just to have him off the books down the line. The base salary for him is significant, but it's not unmanageable if you're the Seahawks. Given the fact that he got the relatively reasonable contract with Miami in the first place, not even $10 million a year, not even $9 million a year, if you had to extend him after trading for him, it wouldn't be that pricey, because I don't think he's been a radically better player in Miami than he was in Seattle. So even if that's a factor, it's not that big of a deal. Now, what would you have to give up to get him? That's hard. That's really hard to know. I'd guess like a 4th-round pick, maybe even a 5th if you're lucky. But it really depends on what Miami thinks of him, and it's really hard to judge that. I know they love Achane. I know they love Waddle. I don't know here. All right, those are your guys on Miami that I think you could trade for that are worth talking about. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys later for the Huskies game. Go Hawks. Bow down to Washington. More trade stuff soon.